You know, doing this whole lining up my memories with events in the World of Warcraft, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be because I have to remember these things, and at the same time when I'm remembering these things, it's like, wow, my nephew was born around the same time that Burning Crusade launched. I don't even, I mean, I have recollections of the events as they happened, but I don't remember them actually colliding. I don't remember the conflict. It's just kind of a funny thing when you're trying to actually look back to the events of your life. But anyway, welcome back everyone to another episode of Prisoner of Warcraft. It's a story of me and my life and how that's kind of lined up with the events of WoW. It's mostly going to be about WoW, but it's a lot of talking about me and some video game footage right behind me. We left off around late 2006 or so. It was like the end of vanilla, when I was kind of meandering between the World of Warcraft and other MMOs and other games, because the fact of the matter was I was a little bit bored with WoW. There wasn't enough to do, and the kind of person that I was at the time wasn't interested in many of those things. So I was just bored. But I don't regret. Of course, I don't regret having played the World of Warcraft, the vanilla time, because during that, during this time period, I entered several phases of discovery, I suppose, and I discovered myself as a player. I learned things that I liked and didn't like. I knew that I liked being a warlock, or overall I liked being the pet classes, but warlocks were easily my favorite. I mean, hunters were cool and everything. I remember having both the white lion and the black lion. I think those were the things that were really important for me. Humar, Ichiyaki. I don't remember the names very well, but I enjoyed being a hunter. It's just that the whole thing about feeding them, the maintenance of being a hunter, feeding your pets and maintaining arrows and stuff. I found that to be a little bit more troublesome than making sure that my warlock was stocked with soul shards. I'm sure people are like, oh, here we go. This is the reason why they took away these kinds of rough edges with having to maintain stuff. There goes the roleplay. It's all Soul's fault. But I like being a hunter. I thought it was cool. I still sort of have a hunter alt that I try to maintain. Being a warlock was just cooler though. You're my pet. I own you. Every time I use my soul shard, it's gonna be you that I get. You're mine, bitch, and all that. I guess this is just rotten feedback, but it would have been cool if hunters were a little bit more self-sustaining. Like if they were able to, I don't know, be an herbalist, or if they had a secondary profession where they can pick little tiny trees and be able to craft their own arrows. That just would have been cool. It would have been a cool thing that would have been, along the same lines of how a warlock would maintain themselves. Anyway, while I was establishing myself as a player, I was also starting to change a little bit as a person. Because I very much am an introvert. Some of you might not understand what it's like to be one, because it's different for every person. There's different levels between what is a mild inconvenience versus what is absolutely debilitating and requires medicine or medication in order to be out and about and act like a, quote, normal person. Being social or being outgoing, it's how do I describe this? It's kind of like being a caster, kind of like being a spell caster in game. Because what I would do, I would look at a small group of people, and I would be able to channel a spell, channel my energy towards these people. And I can be outgoing, I can be confident, I can be social. But this channel has like a time limit and a cooldown. So when that runs out, I kind of freeze. I kind of run out of things to say. I get lost in my own thoughts, and it takes a little while for me to get back into step and be able to jump back into the game and be engaged with people. But at the same time, I would also go I'd run out of mana. And if I run out of mana, if I run out of this social energy, I'm done. I am quite literally done for the day. So whenever that happens in a big social gathering, like a party or anything like that, I'll just suddenly disappear. I'll find a quiet spot to just sit and try to recharge, or just try to put up with the rest of the day. Or if possible, I would just leave. I wouldn't even say a word, and I would just be gone. So 10, 12 or so years ago, it was pretty bad, but not bad to the point where I needed to take medication or go into like crazy intense therapy. But I did try to do things to improve myself. I was at least self-conscious. So I was trying to do speech therapy. I even volunteered, and I talked with the elderly, just having conversations with them just to keep them company and to help me improve my social skills. That's a thing. So I was slowly improving on my life. I still had a job. I was still working at Best Buy, and this time I was working on the business team. Best Buy for Business is what it was called. So I wore like a nice shirt, but I did the same thing. I was just selling stuff to small business customers instead. Ooh, that's really big. I broke off things with the girl that I was dating at the time, and I was sort of talking to this new girl. Ooh, new girl. And this is the girl that would eventually become my wife. So that was cool. And I got a dog. I got the best dog. So there was more entering my life. There was love entering my life. Things felt more full, and that started to reflect upon how I looked at the World of Warcraft too, because I loved it. And I wanted to be a bigger part of it. I wanted to do more. Those things that were happening in my life, it inspired me to change without me really understanding what was going on. It was just kind of an instinct back then. That's how it felt. So I set a few goals for myself as I was transitioning into this new expansion, the Burning Crusade. The big thing was I don't want to be alone. And I've experienced enough of the game on my own. I wanted to see what it was like to be part of something. I just wanted people to chat with, I guess, to start with. By now, I've seen videos, whether it was YouTube, I think at the time, or elsewhere, like Warcraft movies or whatnot. But I've seen videos of these teams of 40 men and women going for the big boss and coming out of it with fat loots and having completed this great challenge. And of course, I've seen the Onyxia White videos and the drama and that sort of thing. And I wanted a piece of that, but I needed to have a core first. I needed to find friends to really start with. I couldn't just start off on my own. That's how I felt. So I wanted to at least start with friends. And that's where my friends Tech and 10 came in. Tech and 10 are my boys. We've been friends for like 30 years, and we grew up in games. We grew into RPGs together. Like, I literally introduced them to Final Fantasy IV, and they were like, oh my god. And we were trading playtime for rice crackers. It was, yeah, it was weird. But getting them into MMORPGs, that was kind of a hard sell for them. Because I already got them into other games like Ragnarok Online and City of Heroes, as I had mentioned before. So it was tough. But one of the things that definitely got Tech, the younger brother, in, because they're brothers. I showed him a picture of Gladiator Warrior tier, I believe. So it has this ridiculous look to it. I think I'll try to put it on stream when I edit this. So it has a certain look to it with the blades and the crazy helmet. And it reminded me of this anime called Tekkaman, where this dude gets into a robotic suit and he does all this crazy stuff. So I showed Tech this, and he got inspired by the look, which that did it. To this day, he still plays. 10 not so much, but Tech still plays with me. He still raids with me, and he still has his original character, Tekkaman, Orc. Tekka. Yeah, it's cool. So back then, I enlisted their help, and from that, I was feeling pumped. I was feeling fired up. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm gonna make this guild. It's gonna be this awesome guild full of these awesome people who all share the same values as me. The problem was, I didn't even know what my values were at the time. I just didn't want people that would turn their back on you, that would leave you hanging. I just wanted to team up and kill bosses, get loot, come home, and celebrate. That was the plan. And so with their help and a couple of signatures, I founded my first guild, Horde House. Yeah. I read on the World Wide Web, or the web, whatever you want to call it, that when you're first starting a guild, you want to get members in such a way that you make it very clear what it is that you want to do. It sounds like a good idea. It's perfectly honest. Hey guys, I want to start a guild. I want to do top rating, get loot and glory and cool stuff. Of course, I didn't have any raiding experience either. In fact, I barely did dungeons. I didn't know the logistics. I didn't know what or where the raids were. So that didn't really get me anywhere as soon as anyone started asking questions or wanting like to elaborate. Hey, I want to be an officer. Hey, what's an officer? Wow, I'm not going to talk to this guy anymore. It was we had those kinds of conversations. So instead, I tried my infinite wit and tried to get people in a more personal way. You know, hey, come join the Horde House. I'm the madam, and I have lots of lovely ladies. So come join. We have feasts or something like that, and it worked better. People would come and join, and then they would leave after a few days. That was great. So, but this is even before the Burning Crusade came out. I'm just trying to get things together. So it didn't really occur to me that people that were even looking for social guilds, they still had intentions to do some form of progression. They wanted to do dungeons. They wanted to get into raids. And I just wanted to get people together. Other people wanted momentum, and I couldn't give that to them because I didn't exactly have a team. It was just me, Tech, and 10. Tekken 10, they just started playing. There were still lobies, and I was the only max level person, so it was really just me. There wasn't much to draw people in, or at least to keep them around for a while. So I have a pretty fond memory of being in Tirisfal Glades on top of the Zeppelin Tower, and I was watching High Lord Cruel, you know, the big Doom Lord guy. He was doing his, hey, this is the Burning Crusade event thing. And I was just kind of watching from afar, and Tekken 10 were just kind of leveling, doing their thing, and it was just me watching. I tried to keep myself pumped up and motivated, but it just kind of felt bad that I was venturing into this new expansion on my own. So when the Burning Crusade finally did begin, I went through the gates just like the millions that have gone alongside me, and it felt odd. It felt really odd because this is Outland. This is a place that I only knew about in the RTS games, and now here I am at the edge of what's known. You know, I'm in the real frontier, exploring a land that no one has seen for many, many years. The early BC experience, it was anyone's first time into a new WoW expansion, so it came with all sorts of phenomena that might be familiar to you now, but for us, it was like, whoa, this is all a first time thing. It felt pretty tense running around Hellfire Peninsula. We're like on a PvP server, but nobody was fighting. Nobody was killing each other. It was all very cordial and really polite. No one was fearing people into mobs or ganking while someone was fighting multiple mobs at once. None of that. It was like we're all standing on a powder keg. If anyone made the wrong move, the whole zone would explode and there'd be skeletons all over the place. It would be like South Shore versus Terran Mill all over again, but it never happened. Everyone was too scared of firing those opening shots. So I found that pretty interesting. But I'm running around and suddenly I would hear some crazy horn sound. I'm like, what's that? I turn around and I die. I would later call that being Felreavered. Oh, I loved that. As for questing through and really jumping into the experience, it felt like absolute insanity of obtaining this new expansion changing leveling gear. You know what I'm talking about. The whole idea of replacing your hard-earned purples with greens of that sort. I had dungeon tier 0 gear. I don't know what the term was, but I had, gear from those dungeons, and it paled in comparison to greens that I would get from picking up Felbor poop or picking up planks of wood and metal in front of Thralmar. It was pretty crazy. It was cool for me because I ended up replacing all my gear in just a few hours, but I remember people being super pissed off. The hardcore raiders were like, they don't, damn those casuals, they shouldn't be playing at my level. I just remember thinking to myself, hey dude, I barely know what I'm doing here. I have a guild of me and 2 lobies. I have very little skill other than, hey, make sure you have your soul shards on you. And I had no game plan as to how I'm going to proceed into endgame. We're not playing at the same level. And that sort of conversation, it persists to this day. This expansion for me personally would be the first and the only time where I'm not racing to the finish, where I don't have some end game plan to quickly start getting into dungeons and try to get the team ready for raiding, because I didn't have that. I didn't notice at the time, but I think back to that and my time as a player, and I think I must have felt liberated. I just felt free. I can do what I want. I can get lost. I'm not falling behind because there's no one I'm really comparing myself to, and I can just play however I saw fit. These days, I don't grant myself that. I think I took something. I think I took some of that experience away from myself. But I found that interesting to look back on. To really underline that point, though, I was going through Hellfire Peninsula. I think I might have made it to level 61, but as I was leveling, as I was waiting for Tekken 10 to catch up, I was thinking to myself, I'm tired of looking at my Warlock, because I would see my undead Warlock lumbering about with his gallop-like shamble, however you want to identify his gait, and the grunts that he would make as a undead person. And in the meantime, I would look at the Burning Crusade opening cinematic, and I would look at what the Blood Elves were. It's like, oh, they look so cool. They're like the opposite of undead with their living skin and their glowy eyes. Okay, they both had glowy eyes, but you know what I mean. They were just very different. And I think the most important attribute about Blood Elves is that, unlike most of the other Horde races, they stood upright. So within like the first couple days of the Burning Crusade expansion, I stopped playing my Warlock. I made a new character. I made a Blood Elf, another Warlock. He must have been like the 7th or the 8th one. And I decided to just make a new character. Making this Blood Elf ended up being a big shift for me as a person, as a player, and as everything, I guess, when I look back on it. His name was Soullock, and it was based on 2 talents from the hybrid spec that I developed. It was based on Soul Life and Soul Siphon, and it made them awesome. And that, obviously, that name influences me to this day. I must have gotten him to 60 in like a week or so. It was quick. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but it was just effortless. I could do it in my sleep at this point. And to make it even more effortless, I remember at 58 or 57, I think. I'm trying to remember exactly what level, but I was able to buy Lobby Outland gear. And I just bought that stuff, and I was just destroying stuff towards the end of the vanilla part of WoW. So I waited until I was 60 and jumped right in, and it felt pretty good. It felt like Dynasty Warriors going through Felwood for that one last time, just trucking everything and hardly taking any damage. So I got to Outland again, and around that time, that's when Tekken 10 were able to catch up, and they were in Outland 2. And then they got Felreavered. Felt really good too. I didn't spoil them, so they got to experience that for themselves. What was really funny is that 10, he got Felreavered, and he got blasted back to the Barrens. He got killed, and then when he released, all of a sudden he's by the Crossroads. I would learn later that the Crossroads is kind of like the default spawn point. Whenever you happen to die in a location that isn't tied or tethered to a graveyard, you just end up over there. But at the time, it was just absolutely hilarious. Over the next couple of weeks ago, I was leveling at my own pace, doing my own thing. My nephew was born. Cool. Congrats to him. But I hit max without it getting all that violence. It didn't really start picking up until probably Netherstorm. I think it was Netherstorm. Either Netherstorm or Shadowmoon Valley. One of those places was where I hit max level for the first time. I think I felt a little bit surprised, but I really shouldn't have been surprised that leveling from 60 to 70 would have been faster than the very first 1 through 60 experience, which took like 2 months or so for me to finally get through. Something like that. But once I did hit max level, the same kind of nagging question came to me. It was like, what do I do now? And thankfully, in a more condensed space within the confines of Outland, there was a lot more that could be identified as to, hey, this is how I can do my endgame. For example, I enjoy dailies. I liked having a little bit of structure that gives me a direction as to, hey, this is your path to get some sort of reputation reward. Or more importantly, when it comes to dailies, I can do them on my own. I had some semblance of choice between the kinds of dailies that I did, especially because of daily quest limits. So I definitely didn't mind doing them, especially once Tekken 10 were able to get to max level and I was doing some stuff with them. But while I had these aspirations to be a better player than I was in vanilla, I had no momentum at all. And more importantly, I had no knowledge or experience on how to make my team grow. I was level 70, but I hardly did any dungeons or any group content at all. I just kind of stuck to myself, or I stuck with Tekken 10. So I was basically doing the same thing that I did in vanilla. It's just that I was also lying to myself, pretty much, about what I thought I was capable of as a player. And that has always been something that I've struggled with. So as we kind of spun our wheels, unfortunately Tekken 10 got bored too. I couldn't really figure out what, or how to entertain them, because we were just 3 DPSers. I was a warlock, Tech is a warrior, 10 is a paladin, a ret paladin, by the way. So they would pop on every now and then, but they were just kind of doing what I did back in late vanilla. They were just kind of going back and forth through different games. So I felt awful. I had these guys kind of sort of waste their time. The cool armor that I showed Tech to inspire him, we were no closer to figuring out how to get that. So my little guild, my little horde house was dying before it even had a chance to live. I needed to challenge myself. I had to go further outside the box in order to really discover just what it is, find out what it took to succeed in this World of Warcraft. So I went to trade chat and did whatever I could to get people in. And I did. My memories are pretty stuffy when it comes to this, but I did have a good handful of people in Horde House. I remember having a paladin and his girlfriend, and we would often quest together. I think she was a rogue, something like that. There are a couple people that I remember pretty well. I remember Tovin. He was a Tauren shaman, I think. Okay, maybe I don't remember him that well. But I remember a priest called Rhiannon. I think those were the names. Those folks were the heart of Horde House, especially Rhiannon, because she brought in a group of friends with her. She was presumably a girl, and they were all these... It was like almost a dozen girls, and they just talked about clubbing all the time. Somehow they were, between their 60s and 70s, or between 60 and 70, they're all leveling up. They all eventually all got to level 70, but they were just kind of chilling and talking about boys and stuff. And I don't know if they really were who they said they were, but I just chose to believe them because that's all they talked about anyway. 10 got a buddy of his into the game. His name is Zero. He came from, I believe, like an RP message board that he and 10 would hang out in, and so 10 just brought him in, and he's a nice guy. He's helpful. He answered questions at the time. He's Canadian. I probably should have let off with that, huh? But yeah, Horde House. That was my guild. It was weird. It was awkward, but we all at least seemed to get along. So while I was haphazardly trying to plug holes in the ship, so to speak, I discovered I had an obsession with crafting. Back in vanilla, crafting didn't really interest me, especially because I was a warlock and I was a blacksmith and a miner. That was, really smart. Soul Lock the Blood Elf, though, he was a tailor. And I actually don't remember what the other profession was, but it doesn't matter. He was a tailor. And as a tailor, I was obsessed with making the Frozen Shadow Weave set because it was epic. And it was a 3-piece set. You can leech life from it, I believe. So I was I was laser focused on getting this. I didn't even bother recruiting. I was just like, okay, I got these people in. Let me just be social. Let me try talking with people. Let me get people pumped up with this thing. So it was pretty much the mandate. Give me cloth. Give me all your cloth. And I'm going to make something cool out of it for me. But, I'm going to make something cool and it's going to help the guild somehow. And that was one of the first good lessons that I learned as a guild leader, to give the team a direction to go in, to offer that goal, and it would give a sense of fulfillment once we met that goal. Of course, this is a very self-serving purpose, but this gave me a real taste of what it felt to get people to work together, because I motivated them to. I did that. And I know it sounds petty, but this is something that I found to be eye-opening and really exciting, because this wasn't a job. People weren't getting paid. This wasn't a group project for school. This is a video game and everything's voluntary. And the guild decided to do what I say. And they decided to help its leader. So that motivated me to farm for materials even harder. So this probably isn't really true. I think over time, over the years, I've kind of embellished this story to the point where it's just become truth. But the guild called me the Beast of the Lake because when I was farming, now keep in mind I'm a warlock. I have underwater breathing, I can still chain fear, and people could only breathe for like a minute. So I'm camping this lake just to the east of Shatrath. It's called Slimmer Lake. And any alliance who entered that lake died. I would kill the crap out of them, because all these elemental fish, whatever things, they're mine. I'm getting this primal life or primal water or primal life, whatever. But this is mine. I own this lake, and that's what I think what I was known for. Anywho, for my first go at high-end crafted gear, it was fun. It was fulfilling. I finished it. The guild enjoyed themselves, and we all felt great. But then, that was it. So ultimately, it wasn't enough to really entertain themselves. People were still leaving. Tekken 10, for the most part, they were, like I said, they were going back and forth through other games, between like Ragnarok Online, City of Heroes, and other games. Zero moved on. He found a raiding guild, and so we weren't going anywhere, so I couldn't really stop him. He just let me know, hey, I'm going to be bouncing. I'm going to join this other guild. I wished him luck, and that was it. Rhiannon and her clubby friends, it was weird. They had this big public blow up, whatever, in guild chats, and then all of them just stopped playing. They just stopped. None of them quit. They just all never logged in again. It was weird. The last thing I heard about them was through Tovin, that shaman person, who said, or he claimed, that one of the girls sent him a picture of themselves wearing nothing but a bra. And he showed me, of course. I was like, oh, that's cool. I have a picture of Rhiannon, I believe, who's fully clothed. And I'm sharing too much. Anyway, not long after that, I told Tovin, dude, this obviously isn't working out. This is a disaster. You should move on. So I encouraged him to leave, and so we parted ways. We wished each other luck, and that was it. So we're 8 months into the Burning Crusade expansion, and I'm back at square one. I'm by myself. I have an awesome frozen Shadow Weave set that looked impressive, but that was it. I still had very little to no dungeon experience. I wasn't doing squat. I was just kind of spinning my wheels, thinking that one day I'm going to be a great guild leader, and I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't exactly bored, but I was just lonely. But ultimately, it was on me. I just wasn't doing shit. So I took Horde House and I transferred it to to Seer, who was the original Warlock, the Undead Warlock. And I stayed on Soullock and moved on. I just started wandering around, still doing dailies and still doing my thing. I knew that in my heart, I didn't want to just join a guild that was pre-established, like, hey, dude, I'm reporting for duty, and the guild master or officer would be like, okay, you got to get caught up. We're going to carry you through this. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to play catch up. I wanted to. Well, WoW was still at an age where there was still a really wide separation gap between guilds who were ready and not ready to clear content. And I wanted to be in a guild that was not ready, that was still part of the growing stages. So that way I can become like one of those really, those really core members. That's what I wanted at the time. So one day, maybe it was like a few weeks or a month later, I'm just kind of wandering around. And for some reason, Terracar Forest comes to mind, at least the color scheme. I just remember a very deep green that was not Shadowmoon Valley or anything like that. But one day I ran into Carl and Gary, these two guys. Maybe they just saw I wasn't in the guild one day and they just made an offer, hoping for the best. And it was really nonchalant. I'll just go with that. I don't even remember their original guild name, which makes me feel really bad, because years later I asked them for the sake of making a video like this, and they told me, and I still forgot. So I joined the guild. I joined their guild. And joining the guild was always plan B. If I couldn't be a leader, then I would be a very loyal follower. Let someone else do the heavy lifting of running and leading the guild, because clearly I wasn't cut out for it. But I did want to at least be part of this team, part of a cool team, and I wanted to do anything and everything that I could do to help. Carl and Gary were real life friends. They're from Texas. Between them, they tanked and they healed. So that was something that Horde House lacked. You see why Horde House didn't work out? I didn't see any of this shit through. And these are the first people I met in WoW who didn't mind being called just their first names. They really are Carl and Gary. They had a wide variety of character names, but I don't remember them too well. I just know them as Carl and Gary. But knowing that, there's a certain charm and there's a warmness to it. Instant familiarity. They like to share, especially when they talked about sleeping with each other's sisters or their moms or whatever. So they were weird in their own way too. There were other people in the guild too. There was a rogue named Unknown, like it was like unknown, but without the letter or whatever. And there was a priest. Her name was Worshipped. Definitely a pretentious name if I ever knew one. But the five of us made up the core of the guild. There were a couple people who would come and go. We would barely see them, but that was it. We were the core of the guild. It was led by Carl, and we hoped to do cool things together. We did dungeons together as a group. This sounds so menial, but in hindsight, it's like, in hindsight, you think to yourself, well, no shit, you do dungeons to get your item level up, and then you can move on to clear higher level content. But then this was really new to me. Meeting up with the same people, clearing a dungeon, instance content, leaving, and still being in guild chat together and talking afterwards. It was sweet. Every couple days when all of us would be on, we'd run a couple of dungeons in the hopes that soon we would meet the basic requirements to get into heroic dungeons, because some of us had keys for these heroics and some other people had keys for that heroic, but we weren't really aligned, so we couldn't do heroics. It was special. Thanks, Blizz, for the barrier there. So a few months went by after joining Carl's guild. It was just another day. I logged in, and immediately after logging in, I got a whisper from Worshipped, or Woo, as we called her later. And she said, hey, me and Unknown, we left the guild. We made a new one. Do you want to join? And I'm like, what the fuck? What the hell happened? I thought everything was cool. It turns out that after we did join Carl's guild, we were cool. We sometimes grouped up and all that stuff, but we were not aggressive at all when it came to recruiting people and trying to actually build a team that could eventually turn out for raiding. Sometimes Carl and Gary would be gone for like days at a time, and we would sort of joke and wonder if they were ever going to come back, like haha. But I didn't think it came to the point where Unknown and Woo were going to leave. But here we were. Carl and Gary haven't been on for like, I think, a week. And it's been a couple months since I joined the guild now, and it really dawned when Wu had mentioned this that, yeah, I guess we haven't gone anywhere. So it kind of dawned on me that I guess this is how the World of Warcraft is going to be, huh? I'm just going to jump from guild to guild, either eat or be eaten, just try to leapfrog from one thing to the next in order to finally get stuff done. It was a far cry from the thoughts that I had about making a guild from scratch and being able to make something cool. I wasn't too fond of that feeling, but I just came to accept that, hey, I guess this is how it's gonna have to be, and we'll see how this goes until I get tired of it. It just seems kind of weird, even in hindsight, that that's what I settled on, because back then, you know, in a game full of millions of players and a vibrant community, that's not quite the reality, at least not for everybody. So I said, sure. I quit Carl's guild and accepted an invite to this guild called Prisoners of Warcraft on November 19th, 2007, which is like halfway through the Burning Crusade expansion now. Prisoners of Warcraft was led by Worshipped, or Wu, and it was co-led by Unkone, the Rogue, and me, the Warlock. We had a mandate. We wanted to raid, and we had a lot of work to do. I didn't know it at the time, but November 19th, 2007 would be the last day that I would be playing just the World of Warcraft. It would be so much more than using my energy on farming materials or doing dailies and dungeons. Now, I was managing people. I was handling relationships, and I was putting expectations on others. I wasn't just playing the game for myself anymore. It went far beyond just barking orders to gather materials just for my benefit. Now, I'm playing for the success of my team, my family. That's how Prisoners of Warcraft persists to this day. Now this whole story involves not just my personal life, not just my life in the World of Warcraft, but now my guild. It all just comes together, and the lines started to blur over the years. I think it's really important to talk about these things, especially today. Not to gloat, but because being a guild in the World of Warcraft these days, it feels like being on an island in this sea of negativity. And that's sad. Being part of a guild gives us the opportunity to rise above these conflicts and indifferences that we see on the forums and the Reddits and the Twitter feeds. Many of PAL's members have this kind of symbiotic relationship with the guild. We need each other, because if not for each other, our days in the World of Warcraft would be numbered. You can ask many of the people on the team that if it wasn't for the guild, they wouldn't be playing. And that goes for me too. I really wish that more players, and even the Blizzard developers, I really wish that everyone could understand what it means to have an in-game family to fall back on. And as I tell my story over the next however long it takes to tell this story, I hope to do just that. And so I became a founding member of PAL, of Prisoners of Warcraft. Whoop-de-doo. The expansion was halfway through, but we were just getting started. That didn't matter though, because I wanted to help any way that I could, because I wanted to taste what others have felt. That was the original goal. I wanted to win as a team and go home together with all the spoils. I was willing to do whatever it took. And then, during the hubbub of aggressive recruiting and trying to manage building a guild website and all sorts of other mistakes and experiments that we've tried as in the earliest days of our guild, I chanced upon a video by a really passionate person who wanted to share their success, how they were able to pull everything in Scarlet Monastery in one pull and survive doing it. It became really fascinating. And that would change my WoW career forever. But that's for another day. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much for listening to my story so far, and I hope that I can share more with you. So don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed yourself. And yeah, stick around for more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.